Hey guys, how's it going? This is my review and sort of breakdown for all of the Tales of the Jedi episodes in one shot. I will be doing a breakdown for each individual episode, as I normally would do for any episode. I'll be doing it tomorrow and throughout the weekend, and the next week. And of course, we'll be talking about it on Nerd Theory. Everyone on Spotify, thanks for checking out today's episode, and I hope you're having a great day so far. Okay, so let's get to it. So the first episode was absolutely phenomenal. I loved it. Probably the slowest one, or the most boring one for all of the 6, but it was still great. It showed Ahsoka being born, showed she has force powers, and it shows that she is a Jedi from the very beginning. And it also portrays her ability to have beast control with the saber-toothed tiger-looking creature. And that is the same power that Anakin also had during the Genosian arena in Attack of the Clones against the Reek. And I love that. I think that was really cool. So, episode 2 was with Dooku and young Qui-Gon. Absolutely loved this as well. And the own politician who was from Raxus, it was his own people, were very, very upset with him, so they kidnapped his son. And his son even was against his dad, being like, yo, what the hell? What's going on? Why would you do this to your own people? This is horrible. And so Dooku sees this, and he was sent there on a private mission from the Jedi to kind of investigate things. And he ended up siding with the village people, siding with the people of Raxus against the hoity-toity, rich, corrupt politician. And we see Dooku for the first time use the dark side as a Jedi. It was a breathtaking scene. It was absolutely phenomenal. And we saw him even push back Qui-Gon Jinn when he was saying, Master, stop what you're doing. Meaning, get the hell out of here. And also meaning that he was so into what he was doing and so into the dark side, he didn't want any distractions. Get out of my way. Get out of my face. How he went up to the politician guy and basically told him, I will get rid of all of this corruption like you. And I'm paraphrasing. And choking him out. That was the Dooku that eventually turns into Count Dooku. And we see right there how angry he is with corruption. And this is the reason that he turned from a Jedi into a Sith Lord. It's because of this corruption. He felt that the Jedi were too focused on politics and they were just pawns at this point. And they only focused on the rich. He didn't like that. Dooku is very rich. And he didn't like his father at all. He hated his father. His father looked at him like he was some mutant scum. And so for Dooku, being rich wasn't necessarily a great remembrance. So that's episode 2. Now, episode 3 was really great with Dooku and Mace Windu. And we see their overall, like how they're so different. So they go to Raxus there, and then they talk to that dude. And we find out that he was the one that was actually sort of behind everything. The guards really were, but he was like their pawn. And so they eventually, they get in a kerfuddle, and if that's a word, and they find out that their Jedi comrade has been killed by these guys unjustly. And they were trying to frame it as like some ambush, which it wasn't. And they investigated and they saw that the shots were actually coming from the ship itself, which means that she was betrayed by them. So they pull out their lightsabers and they start fighting everyone. And we see Dooku and Mace Windu's overall lightsaber abilities and how different they are. And we see that Dooku is actually, instead of jumping away, he's very composed. And Dooku, in my opinion, is a better lightsaber duelist than anybody in the galaxy. He used Makashi, and this is a form that was especially good for dueling. And not so good at lightsaber deflecting, but he was such a master of this form that he even made the weaknesses his strengths. So he was literally impervious. And whenever he would fight someone with a lightsaber, with Form 2, he was so good at this, and this was such an outdated form, such a form that no one really used anymore, that he would just completely confuse them because it was not taught. And so he would just destroy them. And the fact that he was just so good at it. Side note, Sir Christopher Lee was actually a master fenceman. He was a pro fenceman. And so, yeah, everything was like designed for him, like the hilt and everything, which really helps him, is like downward strikes and all that. So that's kind of cool. I like that about him. So anyways, then we saw the kind of two-facedness of Mace Windu, how he was put on the council and Dooku wasn't, because he apparently was the cause of some death on the mission. And I feel like Mace Windu probably knew that he was, or someone was going to take the seat of the Jedi who had died. And so he was probably just not doing his due diligence as a Jedi for the greater good, and was probably just trying to save his butt and get promoted. And that's how I see it. Or at least that's how Dooku sees it. So you guys let me know what you think. And then the episode after that was absolutely brilliant. It was called The Sith Lord. And this is where Dooku finds out that Qui-Gon had actually fought Darth Maul. And then there's a time jump in the episode where he actually ends up finding out that Qui-Gon had died. And when Yaddle comes to him, he's looking at the Force-sensitive tree at the temple on Coruscant. Now, Yaddle comes up to him and Dooku says, I used to bring Qui-Gon here all the time when he was younger. And he's just remembering his Padawan and the fact that all of this should not have happened. That the Jedi just dismayed his beliefs that a Sith Lord had returned. And they didn't send more Jedi with him. They only sent him and Obi-Wan. And exactly what had happened was Darth Maul was real, a Sith Lord did come there, and he did kill Qui-Gon Jinn. And so Dooku blames the Jedi for this. He's done with them. He leaves them. He completely quits, and he flies to a place called the Works. Now, the Works is a place that Palpatine on Coruscant would train Darth Maul in secret. He would have secret meetings there with Darth Maul as well as Count Dooku. And this is where we see Dooku's full turn to the dark side, where he is basically forced to fight Yaddle as she follows him there. And him and Sidious are discussing things, and Dooku says, I have done everything, I have betrayed everyone. And Sidious is like, you have fought for what you think is right, or something like that. And so Yaddle shows up and says, Dooku, join me, it's not too late, whatever you have done, you can right all your wrongs just by joining me, and we can bring down Sidious. Of course, Sidious would have just pwned both of them, I believe. I don't think Yaddle was nearly as strong as Yoda, as we saw that Dooku couldn't beat Yoda. And Yoda is Dooku's master, so he learned everything from Yoda. Yoda's number one. So, I mean, well, I guess besides Sidious, we can say. So anyways, Yaddle then fights Dooku, because Dooku just lunges at her, and they have a pretty good brawl. And she's trying to turn him at the same time, and she says, you know, like, stop this, like, it's not too late, I'm on your side. Dooku ends up almost killing her with the door, and she raises it up, she falls to her feet, and he, in cold blood, just slashes her. And Sidious says, rise, my apprentice. And, you know, we get the whole Sidious movement where he just indoctrinates him in the dark side, essentially. And now Dooku is who we see in the prequel trilogy in Attack of the Clones. And it was beautiful how they interlaced this with the Plagueis novel, I believe, because in there also Dooku, it didn't happen like this with the Yaddle fighting, but they had to kill her off, I guess, some way. Now, in Legends, Yaddle did die, but she died because she sacrificed herself for Anakin Skywalker's safety as well as the rest of the city, and she took a bomb to the chest and just kind of like absorbed its power. So in the Plagueis novel, Dooku and Sidious were meeting, and this had been after Qui-Gon's death and after the death of Darth Maul. And so Dooku had joined Sidious, and he had just fallen so far from the Jedi Order and just didn't believe in them anymore. And he felt that they had become pawns of the Senate, pawns of politics, and felt that they only fought for basically the Senate's needs and for the rich. And he didn't like that. He wanted to fight for something else. He wanted to fight for the Force, for what he felt was right, that would bring peace to the galaxy. And then later, of course, in the Revenge of the Sith novel, he had ideas to have a Sith army. He thought Anakin was going to join them when Palpatine said, just go and fight Anakin. It's just a test, don't worry, blah, blah, blah. But, of course, that all turned against his idea. He died because Palpatine betrayed him. Yeah, you know, he should have seen that coming. Practice makes perfect. 5th episode. Again, beautiful episode. It's where Anakin is training Ahsoka, and he saves her life by pushing her so hard to learn how to deflect blasts when she's encompassed by clone troopers. And she's like, what the hell is the point of this? Like, I'm never going to be up against clones. These clones are so much... Rex's team is so much better than any clankers could ever be. So she's right, but he pushed her so much to reach a new level, and it took her years. Because as you see, the first training was with the Phase 1 clone trooper helmet, and then there's a bit of a wake-up scene where it just flashes, like it just changes, and they have Phase 2 helmets. So we see that time difference, the fact that she's been doing this type of training for literal years. And of course, then it transitions into the ship with Clone Wars Season 7, and she had used that same exact move that she learned to fend herself against Rex during the Phase 1 moment, and then she used that again later on to save herself for Order 66 against the clones, against Rex and his crew. So in a very weird and emotional way, Anakin had saved her by pushing her to the brink of her abilities with that type of training. And I thought that was really poetic and really nice. Now, number 6, Resolve, was very short. It felt very short, but it was actually 13 minutes long itself, not including credits. So that was Ahsoka killing the sixth brother, and in the Ahsoka novel, she actually kills him, and she takes his crystals and purifies them. So there's this thing in Star Wars canon now where a Sith crystal isn't synthetic. It used to be synthetic, like a fake crystal. Now it is an organic crystal that starts out white, and you have to bleed it, or any color, and you have to bleed it, and you have to make it crack, and you gotta make it bleed, not crack. You gotta make it bleed, and it turns red. You pour all your hate into it. If you've seen one of the Vader comics that I covered where he does that, where he like makes his crystal bleed, it's one of my favorite comics that I ever covered. And there's some fun editing that I did in that one years ago. I remember making that. It was a good time. So I would have loved to have seen her take the crystals and make them purified, make them white, but we didn't see that, sadly. Now her taking on the sixth brother without a lightsaber and just using the Force and just very cool, very sweet. This is Anakin's protege. This is Anakin's apprentice, and it's Ahsoka Tano. So of course she's going to be able to do that. So I don't want to see anyone saying Mary Sue or anything like that. No way. She put in the time. She's had so many arcs for training, and it makes sense. Plus she was trained by Anakin. Now that was it. That was the end of the whole show. Her showing up at Padme's funeral right after the events of Clone Wars Season 7 was also really nice to see. That added a nice little Easter egg, and maybe, we're not going to be able to see her in Revenge of the Sith, but we'll know that she's there now, and this is canon. So this is great. I love the fact that this show existed. I would love to see a Tales of the Sith. I'm going to make a video on that as well, covering my thoughts. However, I will briefly say Tales of the Sith can cover all of the Sith characters. Young Palpatine, I think, is the most interesting story that they could make from the Plagueis novel, and of course they're not going to probably take that because they think it's Legends, but they can take adaptations. We do know that Plagueis was Palpatine's master, and he is a very interesting Sith Lord. He's very powerful, and I think there's a lot of story to be told there with a Tales of the Sith. We could get Bane, we could get more Dooku, we could get Plagueis himself when he was younger, we could get Darth Revan, we could get so many different characters from Star Wars that are Sith or that go to the dark side. Asajj Ventress, Darth Maul, Savage Opress. They could fill in so many different gaps, have Dooku come in again. Mother Talzin, even though she wasn't a Sith, she was a dark side user. I mean, she used dark magic. So I think the overall consensus for this show is going to blow the analytics out of the water, and I think people are going to be so happy about it, and they're going to want more. I think it'll be greenlit for a season 2, I hope. I think it would be a waste if they don't. I think this show was money, and I think it's going to make them a lot of money. It's going to tell them that, hey, this is kind of what fans really like, and I hope that they greenlit every single Dave Filoni project going forwards. I've made a video called I Love Tales of the Jedi and Why. That is kind of like my message to Lucasfilm and Disney, and I hope anybody that works there sees it and would understand, like, hey, this is something that people really like, and it was really good. So, I know Star Wars is very hit or miss. Anything Dave Filoni makes is always a hit, and it never misses. So my only hope is that he creates more animated projects. I think they're always amazing, and they always, the funny thing about them is that the characters don't age, they're animated, and so they will always bring us back to that nostalgic childhood moment where a lot of us grew up with the Clone Wars, a lot of you younger than me, a lot of you older than me. It doesn't matter. It will always bring us back to that moment of where we were watching the Clone Wars for the first time, and of course Bad Batch and Clone Wars Season 7 and so on and so forth. I think there are so many things that they could do with animation, with this animation style, that it would be a pity if they didn't focus more on it and create more animated projects that I think would benefit their pockets as well as our hearts with more Star Wars content, because this was absolutely phenomenal. It was a 1 million out of 10, and I don't think anything was lame in any of these episodes. So my hat's off to the whole team that created it. My hat's off to Dave Filoni once again, and I hope that we get to see more, because this was exactly what Star Wars is about, in my opinion. I think this carries on George Lucas's legacy and carries on his characters and really develops his characters instead of breaking them down or changing them in any sort of way. And I think if anyone understands George and his story and Star Wars and these characters, it's Dave Filoni, because he actually cares. He was trained by George, and he knows them from inception, especially Ahsoka, because he was there when he created her. Thanks for watching my breakdown. I will be doing a much more concise one as well. I hope you guys have a great day. I hope you agree with me and a lot of the things I said, and if you don't, I would love to hear your thoughts. Please chime down below, and maybe you have some messages for Disney and Lucasfilm regarding this show, and, strong praise. They deserve it. When they mess up, they deserve to hear our anger, and when they do well, they deserve to hear our joy and our love. And I hope that we get more of this kind of content. Amazing. Made me feel like a little kid again. Love you all. Have a great day. May the Force be with you.